Hello and welcome back to another Big Mish Movement workshop. Thank you for tuning in, or if you've been keeping up, thank you. If you've heard me talk a little bit about goal setting, my philosophy, what I really feel we should be doing. Especially in the last episode, I was specifically talking about how fitness tends to fall into strength versus stamina, and how we pick our goals and our workout sessions is really important. Strength on one side tends to be good form, lower reps, more of a max effort, higher load and intensity. So it usually involves something with weights and whatnot. Not limited to, you can do body weight and such, but when we're talking about the other side, which is more stamina, we're talking about things that are more higher rep, more heart rate, more high body temperature, because that burns fat throughout the workout, gets a good sweat going. That usually actually tends to involve more body weight or lighter weights with higher reps. And so when we're picking our goals for fitness, when we want to work out, we're looking at, okay, what am I going to do? Usually exercise falls into one or the other category. And in my last video, I really broke down and debated about which we should be picking. And I feel like we should be picking strengths. And just a quick little review, mainly because of time is of the essence. We're all getting older. We don't have that much time to work out. If you had 5 days a week, you could easily split that up, but most of us don't. With 2 to 3 times a week, or even 4 times a week that we have for training, it is so important that we hammer down on strength a lot of the time, at least consistently. And that's just because we don't have that much time to work out, and so where do you want to do how do you want to spend your time? And then in terms of attacking your goals, strength outcomes usually almost always outweigh the outcomes from stamina. Even if you're trying to pursue weight loss, in the long run, you're better off starting with a bit of strength first. Just because it builds you that strong base, you build more muscle burns more fat in terms of metabolism throughout your weeks, even as you're not working out. Whereas more of this high intensity, low loading, high intensity means in terms of higher reps and maybe low rest. You can't do that with weight, obviously, because you need to rest and build up. That kind of workout, although it burns a lot of calories throughout the workout, although it raises your temperature during the time, you don't get as much metabolism spike, which burns calories throughout the day, because you're not building as much muscle in terms of neurological breakdown that strength does. However, you might be getting more muscle breakdown, fiber breakdown, which promotes more growth. So again, if you're going for aesthetics and looks, and you have a very little time in that sense, that might be the key. But even if you're an average person, you're going to get plenty of aesthetic gain even from basic strength. You don't have to specialize so much. Not initially, not for the first few weeks of training, or even months of training, maybe even a year of training. That being said, the strength outcomes also outweigh stamina outcomes, especially when it comes to injury prevention and when it comes to performance. And performance is a big deal, whether you're an athlete or even just somebody in life. We want to perform well. We want to not get hurt. We want to not get tired. We want to feel good, and we want to be strong throughout our day and manage challenges that we're faced with. And that's where the stamina training isn't going to do that for you as well. So that's just a quick little recap on, I don't want to get too much into it. Go to my previous video. We're here to talk about building strength, because the body has basic movement patterns that it needs to be great at. Various things: push, pull, hinge, maybe a single leg lunge, one to one side. Squat, debatable on how necessary it is, but we are going to say squat down to a good depth. Being able to carry and hold just your core, or extend with your core properly, not overextending, and manage good neutrality. All of these are some basic things that we need to be great at, that we're going to be using throughout our life over and over and over again, which is why you want to be good at it. And so that being said, while the core can facilitate many movements, and I'm not actually going to talk about that today, I have talked about some basic core movements and such in one of my previous videos. Please go check that out. However, in terms of when it comes to our extremities, which meaning our arms and our legs, pretty important, guys. Sure, they are attached to the core, which is why we need the core to function well before we can get these guys to function well. However, when it comes to strength, you're mainly talking about strengthening these guys and how we can really make that break that down for you in terms of movement planes and training, so that you can simplify your workouts and be like, okay, I need to hammer down on A, B, C, and D, and just keep filtering through them. And you can always add other stuff. You can always then do endurance training, or you can always add different types of strength training, but making sure that we hammer down on these planes of motion that we know our arms and legs are going to do throughout our day. And of course that incorporates hips. I'm just, again, not going to talk so much about the core, because that we can talk about that in a whole nother video. So what are these basic planes that we need for strength? How do we build strength? Because I preach that this is one of the most important things to us, the most important things for injury prevention or overcoming an injury, the most important in terms of finding that stability that we need. The number one way to get the nervous system to trust something is with strength and loading a bit of weight on that. This is why weight training is so good. But it has to be done right. You can't just force it, and you can't stress the body in a negative way. We want healthy amounts of stress that we can cope with, overcome, adapt, and that equals the change that we want. So I'm going to demonstrate the movements, but basically here's the most important thing. When it comes to arms, we got a push and pull, and then we've got two planes that happens in. We've got horizontal push, pull. There you got various exercises that can categorize in, and vertical push and pull. All right, most important right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, hammer down. There we can argue, well, what about angles here? What about there? And you know, one thing that comes to my mind instantly is an incline dumbbell. Sure, you can facilitate that, filter that into either or, but so long as you're hammering down on planes of motion involving here, here, and here, here, you've covered a lot of your bases with upper body. I like to also break it down day by day in that sense, in that not necessarily a back and bicep, not necessarily chest and tricep, or really narrowing it down that way. That's more for your bodybuilders or people who are really trying to put on size because they have to super isolate onto that muscle group. We're talking about balancing your body. We're talking about balancing your strength. We're talking about building strength from a healthy foundation and, you know, getting that whole everything covered. Plus, by reciprocating in these ways, you are actually doing your nervous system and tension a big favor, and this actually keeps tension levels lower. When you overdevelop one side, while the other side tends to get a little bit neglected, that causes tension, whether it's from overworking or even the fact that the nervous system is unbalanced and it's just harboring onto tension to help you. So by going back and forth, you're doing your body a good service. So I'll have a horizontal push-pull day, and then I'll have a vertical push-pull day, okay? Then for the lower body, you're pretty much gonna go to anterior and posterior of the upper hip section. We'll go quads versus hamstrings and glutes. So for quads, my number one exercise, and I will demonstrate this, is I prefer to always go single leg over double leg. So I do not put the squat as number one. I will put the lunge or Bulgarian split squat as the number one exercise, because we must master single leg stance before bilateral stance. Yes, of course, we bilateral came as we stood up, but that represents a static human being. As soon as the baby stood up, it wanted to move forward, and therefore the standing position became an irrelevant feature to really train as much as a single leg standing alternating position, which is what our body will be doing throughout life. So when it comes to quads, and even this is still going to cover some of your hips, I recommend Bulgarian split squats and sort of lunge patterns for that. For the posterior, we'll go glutes and hamstrings. Deadlifts, number one. And this is my exception for bilateral. I do a lot of bilateral two-footed deadlifts just because that tends to be a little bit more of something we'll use a lot in our day. Extension pattern. Now I'll go into demonstrating later, but an extension pattern like so. We'll talk about squat in a little bit, but let me just finish. So we'll talk there, we got glutes, we got tons of single leg hip hinge work, we got some hamstring work as well, because we gotta strengthen the hamstrings, which are always weak. Oh, and then of course on the quad day we'll throw in calves too, because calves are actually important. We want to get some full range work, get some good mobility, and make sure that we're able to push off our tiptoes and get into the full depth. Strength throughout the end ranges. So I'll go calf, quads, glutes, hamstrings on and there you have a sort of a 4-day strength split that I really like to kind of break it down with. So squat, where's the squat? Well, we could throw a squat in a quad day. I just don't prioritize it. Maybe we'll put the squat after we've done the Bulgarian split squats. That'd be a good idea. I just don't crown it as one of my main movements. Not over the deadlift, which is bilateral, or Bulgarian split squat, which is unilateral, 1 and 1. I do feel it's important for us to be able to drop into a low squat and be able to hold that. I think that's more important of what we'll be doing when we do some housework. Maybe we might want to be nice and down low. But to be able to squat with weight on your back is something that bothers a lot of people's spines, plus our form usually alters. However, I will go through some modified squat techniques, where we can hold in the front squat. That allows you to get into a nice low position. But again, I just really, most importantly, you could go to my previous videos on this, but the single leg stance is one of the most important things that you want to be hammering down in strength work. Again, that's not a topic for today. We're going to talk about the movements. That is what we're going to go into next. So this is your 4-day split. So what are some examples of these movements? And again, I prioritize unilateral, one arm working with one arm. Not that I hate the barbell. I'm sorry if you love barbell movements. That's just not something I go to as often, just because it doesn't honor as much of the movement patterns that we're going to be utilizing in life, which is a lot of opposition, opposite hand and leg moving forward, because of crisscross patterning per se. All right, so let's get into these movements so that we can just focus on some examples and you have something to go off of. Let's start with the upper body, okay? So we've got horizontal push-pull. So that is your bench or row day. So bench press or even chest press. And we can go row is, pretty much go. So with rows, the ability to move and rotate is just a priority. We can do another variation where we're sitting in an L and row. So whether you do that or the half kneeling position, okay. Some good, valuable single arm, in a single sort of leg stance, where you can vary up your cables. And again, we want that reach, pull, healthy movement. How about with a dumbbell? Well, you can do a sort of bend over like this. I like that. Some people like to do it off a bench. That's cool too, with the one hand right here, one knee right here. You know, that's all good. I like it because it's a concept of one arm's reaching, one arm's pulling, and then ultimately you're switching back and forth. Healthy stuff. This is stuff that you're going to be doing in life. It sort of mimics a sort of running pattern in a sort of extreme way, which is one of the reasons we want to train this way, because we're sort of training back to the bare essentials of our human movement, which is actually running. So that's a row. Now what about chest presses? Okay, well, we got on the floor, dumbbell, bench, and I prefer one arm at a time, or you can go alternating. Okay, there's a couple of examples for you right there. Sure, you can go 2 at a time. I, again, prefer dumbbells for that, just because you're at least working one arm versus the other. Barbell is okay to do, and if you are a power athlete that has to do barbell, good on you, go for it. Just supplement dumbbell training because it will really help expose some weaknesses, especially if you do that sort of alternating pull, press, and press, or one arm at a time. It's really going to challenge the arm to sort of work in isolation, which is more of how it happens. Even very rarely are we going to sort of push with 2 arms at the same time. When usually it's sort of one going forward. You know, when we're talking about extreme power, max power. So, and that's what we want to ultimately train for and develop. So, not to knock push-ups either. They're great. Just challenge one at a time. It's going to be good for you. So speaking of which, that's where we can go for cables. All right. Again, you can go into that half kneeling stance or a staggered stance, but I'm just going to show a half kneeling. Boom. Okay, that's an example of a chest press. I could stand up and stagger it. That works too. Notice I'm picking this is an easier position, and that would be a harder position. Sure, you can go 2 foot together at the same time as well. That works too. However, I just don't like it nearly as much as staggering my stance like I'm doing right now. It's going to be a lot more healthier for your hips. It's going to be a lot more beneficial for your overall development, corrective development for your hips, deep muscle attachments, or even the big global ones, glutes, hamstrings, and again, reciprocating that back and forward. So there you go, that's our horizontal plane. Now let's talk about vertical plane, okay? Vertical plane, we can go for a double bilateral with the pull-ups. I do like pull-ups. I think they're valuable to do, or valuable movement for us to have to be able to do. Obviously you don't need a demonstration for that. Pull downs, unfortunately I do not have something to demonstrate here with pull downs, but one thing with pull downs is get to a cable machine and get 2 handles individually. Ditch the pull down bar, and again, learn to go 1 at a time. And you could be in this position, tall, kneeling, or you can even go staggered one at a time, or maybe you can even sit on the floor. Okay, don't think being nice, fully extended. This one, we're trying to get our ribs expanded as much as possible, especially because we're crunching down. That's going to nicely open the other side, and it's going to get good breathing mechanics. Lat pull downs can be, especially when you're alternating, can be an excellent assistance breathing exercise. Just because of your whole exhalation, and as you pull down, crunch. Great for getting air out on that side, getting air in on the other side, and then once again we are reciprocating, alternating like we would be doing as a functioning, running human being. So not to bash overly on the double bilateral pull down. It's just very extensive, and that is not as beneficial for us, not for how we feel and not for how we move, as an alternating patterning. Crunch and expansion, crunch and expansion. Very healthy for the body, okay? Now for the shoulders. So again, if you want to get on a bar and do some shoulder press, you know, once in a while, I think that's good. And especially, you know, I'm a big handstand guy, so I'm always doing a two-handed push. But you gotta hammer down on the single arm too, because I know for sure my left is never as strong as my right. So this is where, once again, the beautiful half kneeling position is an excellent position for stability and learning to just sort of hold yourself while one arm does the work. You'd be right here, arm out. Okay, that's a great shoulder exercise. Of course, you could take 2 dumbbells as well, but it just, sometimes I feel like go hard on one side and then go hard on the other side and make sure you match. Once you can do that, then we can worry about having a double day, but really hammer down on those unilateral weaknesses. We can also do it in a L-seated stance. This is just good because you'll feel your sitting bones. I did this in a previous rowing exercise. So where on a standing position, sometimes our balance will throw us off and we'll lean to one side without even realizing it. This is gonna take that away and force you to use your core a lot more. So again, here we go. All right. So there you go. And of course, with the barbell, you can also do it in a seated position. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just giving you guys some ideas of unilateral, one side versus the other, okay? That's the upper body done. Let's just talk about the lower body real quick. So the hinge, main big exercise. So the hinge is all about the hips going back, right there. I'm creating this triangle where my arms are going straight down, my butt's back, and I'm creating a nice triangle. Then with the weight right here, so when you have a deadlift day, providing you have the safety progressions, not good equipment, you're ready to do it, you'd have the weight between your feet, arms go straight down to grab the weight, okay? Do not lead with the neck, you keep that completely neutral. Feel the floor, push through it, coming to a full erect stand. Back down with control, and up. Okay, and then of course we can take that into all kinds of single leg stuff, just making sure that you're lowering the weight over the left toe. Don't drop it though. And that really hammers down on the single leg glute. Okay, on the other side. And that also gets a good amount of hamstring as well. Hamstring's a little bit tough because now very few people, if you don't go to a gym, you don't have a hamstring curl machine, you're like, well, what do I do? Well, actually a hamstring curl machine is not the best way for us to train our hamstrings. And it's good, if that's all you have, let's go for it. But it's not all you have, because all you need is slidey material. So whether you put towels on a wood floor, or you can use a magazine on a carpet, or a book on a carpet. You can even get these hamstring sliders specifically for carpets. We can do some extensions. Even if we do not have them, I'm going to show you what we could do, which is some bridge walks. So you'd be right here, hips up, walk it out slowly, keeping your hips up off the floor the whole time. Okay, bring it back in, keeping the hips up. All right, that's an example of a hamstring walk. If you have sliders, you could slide your legs out, slide your legs back in. Okay, another good one I like is Nordic drops. This is when you have some weight by your feet and you go lean. If I can hold on to this. This is when you lean forward. Basically have your hamstrings engaged and you can just hold it right there, or even pull yourself back depending on how well you can do it. It's actually extremely difficult, so being able to go all the way out and back in is very few people can do it, but even getting that little bit of a lean fires up my hamstrings. So there's your hamstrings for you. Some exercises for the hamstrings. Okay, almost done. Quads. So Bulgarian split squat is my go-to. All right, Bulgarian split squat. This is the one when your feet are on the back of something right here. Okay, and you have a weight or whatever, and then here. Okay, if that's too difficult for you, sure, we can go for a lunge, standard lunge. Okay, some pretty good options, they all work. What's the other one? Let's say you have trouble getting into a deep range. We could do an elevated split squat. So as I put the block out here, let's say your foot is elevated on something, and now you can go into a super deep range. The block's not really high enough, but point is, if you put your foot up on the step, it allows you to get into a deeper range. Step ups work too, but I like to master the Bulgarian split squat before I go into the step up. And an elevated split squat's good because of deep range. So, and I mean, whatever you like, whatever works for you. Point is, we got single leg stance, deep in the hip range, okay? I prioritize that over squat, but you could also throw in some squats, throwing the weight up here, up in front. I like that a lot more than loading at the back. Okay, front squats are great, but I'm telling you, it's not going to be nearly as valuable as you hammering down on strength on one leg versus the other, and then mimicking all these half kneeling positions while you're doing your upper body strength work. So further hammering down on what your legs need to be doing, which is reciprocating and alternating, And then lastly was the calves. So what's really important is just getting that full deep range. So I like to go from a full hang off the block, about a 2-second 1-2 up, hold the tippy toe for 1 second, and then 1-2 slowly down, hold the stretch for a second. I like to really break it down into nice, slow, controlled, full range reps like that. You can make the whole movement 1 second down, up, 1 second down if you want, but I like to really accentuate it up into 2 whole seconds. Hold the top for 1, hold the bottom for 1. As you're holding the top, try not to let yourself roll out to the side. Try to hold the big toe, the ball of your foot down into the floor. So, you're right here. See my heels off the edge. Hold the stretch for 1, 1, 2. Hold the top for 1, 1, 2. Hold the stretch for 1, 1, 2. Hold the top for 1, 1, 2. Hold the stretch for 1. Okay? And that's just, I mean, pretty simple. I don't like to do too much calf work, but I want to make sure that we hammer down on those just because of just full end range conditioning, getting that stretch, and learning to get to the top of the toe and power through the calf as well. So, and that's pretty much it for the whole body. You know, we've covered all the vital parts except for core. Again, that's a different topic for a different day. Go check out some of my core videos if you want to learn more about that. But when it comes to strength, these are the movement patterns we really gotta be hammering down on week in, week out, consistently. You can always throw in extra stuff. You can always do other types of workouts. Whatever it is tickles your fancy. It's just these are the areas we want to gain balance strength in. And as you notice, I've done a lot of push versus pull, and in terms of the lower body with the front and the back, to as much as to the degree as we can. Important stuff in terms of just balancing out the body, getting the nervous system to feel its best, have reciprocal activity that calms the nervous system down. No joint movement weakness because you're covering all your bases. So no body left behind, no muscle left behind. And you get actually a nice looking physique because you're well balanced throughout. It's good for hormone production as well, a little bit better, unless you're going for that super muscle breakdown stuff that bodybuilders do. Just in general, I think it's more of what people should be doing. It's just when they haven't been taught to do these things. And particularly in gyms that are filled with machines or barbells, we tend to gravitate to those first because we think that's what we should be doing. Dumbbells are great, and of course there's some accidents that can happen if we're not ready. Hopefully some of my positions will allow you to ease into it and again gain good form and control of it. Because sometimes when you have two dumbbells in each hand is when more of an accident happens versus one and the other, which is what like I said, I prioritize in terms of getting that strength in one side. Because again, if you have dumbbell on one side, that's gonna force opposite oblique to really work, and that's part of the goal is what we wanna do is reciprocate versus being counterbalanced with two. So another more good reason to really crack down on this unilateral strength of one side versus the other. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if I got any questions here. Yeah, man, I do need more kettlebells. That's my guy giving me some some good props. Does it get harder as you get older? Yeah, you know, strength training, of course, will always get harder when you get older, but that's even more the reason you want to hammer down on these basic movement patterns, because once you master them, which you will after some consistency, your body gets stronger, and now the opposite will happen. Now you'll start being ahead of the pack. It's a problem when you don't. The more you neglect these basic movement patterns is the more you get weaker at them as you get older. And then we led into, all right, I gotta work out. And then we get thrown into some kind of fitness class that maybe neglects all these movement patterns. And it not only is hard to keep up, but you also could be doing some damage trying to keep up. Not to throw any fitness trend under the bus. I just seen the body. I've worked with the bodies many times, and I know where the weaknesses are, and I know these are some of the basics that we got to get down and make sure we get good at. What's the minimum days people should be trained to maintain strength? 2 is the minimum a week. If you do once a week, you can get by, but you'll probably be losing things here and there if you don't really hammer in a lot in your workouts. So I usually recommend 2 to 3, but if you're doing 3 times a week, you're now verging on making gains. 3 to 4, and you're definitely making gains. But you want to go at least 2 per week. And then I think that is it. And yeah, and my guy was saying increases fascial alignment and elongation. Yeah, basically, you know, especially when we reciprocate and go back and forth and make sure we're going push-pull on one day, push-pull, and making sure we really balance out. It's only going to help your posture. It's only going to help your fascia. It's going to help you just grow into a better functioning human being. A lot more than just saying, well, today I guess I'll just do some abs, run a treadmill, maybe do a little bit of chest and biceps. No. Let's train for function, train for your basic human necessities, needs. I've labeled them out for you. Go do them, go be great at them. Shoot me any questions that you have in the comments. I love hearing from you. If you want me to cover a topic in future, send me a message. I'll gladly do. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for supporting me through this. I love doing this and getting better at this and giving you guys the information you need to help you with your goals. And again, be a better functioning human being, because it is in our power. It's in your capabilities. We just need to know the right things to do, and it's money, it's you, it's all you. So go do it, have lots of effort, focus, enjoying your workouts. Take care, happy 2021 people. Bye for now.